First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go along that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got that.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good.
I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Guyanese
erratic
Michael
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Michael Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? No, Gildarie, you deal with that. You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hello, welcome to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. Thanks for being with us after 16 months. We're entering our 17 months, and I keep saying it's your patronage, but also the presence of our guests on this program that have made it into the little success that it is. We have two guests this evening that have been with us from inception, and we thank them for their presence. They have enjoyed with us. My little opening remarks before we introduce them. One of the sad omissions of this country, I grew up in an era when I was a UG student of debates all over Guyana. You would see in the papers there's a debate at City Hall, a debate at Bishop's High School between political activists, intellectuals. UG always have debate. When I was at a lecture at UG, you had public lecture almost once a month. The university lectures had to do. Sadly, debate in Guyana has died. And we try as best as possible to use this platform, this forum, to bring debate to Guyana and wherever Guyanese are. We bring people in the studio that could present their views, and those views are either accepted or rejected by others sitting next to them. This evening we have two persons I regard very much in terms of their political integrity. The first is Leonard Craig. Let me say this, for the time I have been around the AFC, the two most independent-minded persons I saw in the AFC was Leonard Craig and Michael Carrington. They showed no partisan attitude to people who were not AFC. They were not poisonous to people who were supportive of the PPP. And that was a good hallmark for both of them, and it turned out that both of them have maintained their integrity. So Leonard Craig is one of our guests this evening. The other guest is, if I was to ask to name an independent-minded person who would give Jack his jacket, who would criticize the government, and then another day would say, listen, this was a good move by the government. And that person is Jonathan Yearwood. I find Jonathan to be what I always wanted to be, have an independent mind and give Jack his jacket. And I think Jonathan remains one of the least jaundiced in terms of ideological perception in Guyana. And I'm happy to have both of these persons tonight, who I think adds to or fills the gap in Guyana's political culture, where people can intellectually discuss things without seeing the PPP, the PNC, the business community, the small parties as just being bad or dismissing them. So, to our viewers this evening, our guests are Leonard Craig, formerly of the Alliance for Change, and Jonathan Yearwood, founding member of an opposition party called A New and United Guyana, ANUG. He subsequently went on to form a civil society body called Article 13. I'm not going to pronounce on that because I don't know if he has left that, but he will tell you about that. Now, before we go on to our interaction, I need to make an announcement about Leonard Craig. He has now become a public intellectual and a public analyst. He is now a columnist with the Guyana Chronicle. This is his latest article, Moral Hazard in Guyanese Politics. It is an analysis of either the failure, competence, or what have you of the opposition leader, Aubrey Norton. So I will read a few lines from this article analyzing Aubrey Norton and ask Jonathan Yearwood to respond. But before that, the protocol. Jonathan, thanks for being here and thanks for enjoying with us. I think this is a fourth appearance, and I'm looking forward to more. Leonard Craig, now,
my pleasure.
I have to say something bad about you, Leonard, and maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth. I think this is the third time you've been here, and every time you have to explain something intellectually, the panelists and I have never understood what you were saying. So I hope we don't have, and the panelists agree, this man would go all over the world and explain something, and we would look at each other and say, what the hell, you understand what he said? Anyway, let us quote from Leonard Craig's article, an analysis of opposition leader Aubrey Norton in his column, Moral Hazard in Guyanese Politics. Now, Jonathan, I'm reading what Leonard wrote, and please give me your opinion. Do you ever wonder why a handshake became the centerpiece of Norton's political activism? Regardless of the party you support, deep in your heart you know that Guyanese will benefit from a formidable, sensible, and strategic opposition. But Norton is not currently providing this kind of leadership. Have you heard that? You want to comment or you want to pass on to anything else? We want to read it again?
No. First of all, I would like to say, Freddie, thank you for having me back here. This is indeed the fourth time I'm here.
You're welcome. There will be 10 times.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Aubrey Norton. Aubrey Norton's refusal to shake the president's hand was both childish, immature, and politically incorrect. In politics, You have to deal with the devil you know, the devil you don't know, the scrupulous, the unscrupulous. You have to deal with all sorts of people if you want to be a politician. So, being in politics, you have to get off your high horse and get down into the trenches and shake hands with people that you may like or people you may not like. And there's nothing wrong with shaking hands with that. A handshake says, I come in peace. I don't have a weapon to attack you with. That's the origin of a handshake. And it still stands today. It's a welcoming gesture. So for the leader of the opposition in Guyana to willfully ignore the president of Guyana's handshake, I think it was ridiculous, childish, and very immature.
Leonard, for those who haven't read your column, let me read the lash, as you say in common Guyanese parlance, that you put on Aubrey Norton. In that instance, the pit bull becomes, for those who are listening to my quote from Leonard Craig column, he's talking about Aubrey Norton here. In that instant, the pit bull becomes a poodle, the workhorse becomes a show pony, the opposition has no luster and is now the weakest opposition in the history of Guyana. Is that a serious put down? You would regard it as a put down, Jonathan?
I would consider it as a serious put down, but I would also consider it to be correct. Because by not shaking the president's hand, as I said, it's childish and immature. It shows that you're not politically mature enough to be the leader of the opposition.
So you wrote that, so you won't regard it as a put down?
I regard it as a political and analytic piece, just analyzing the way I see it. It wasn't intended to be a put down, but if it turned out to be that way, then so be it.
Let me ask you if this is a put down. I'm quoting again from the man's column. Moral Hazard in Guyanese Politics is an analysis of Aubrey Norton's leadership in the Guyana Chronicle, Monday, November 13th. Tell me this is a put down. And when you're explaining it, please make sure you use language that Jonathan Yearwood and I understand. The AFC is now at its weakest since its inception. In fact, near dead, compounded by an unprecedented membership attrition. You stand by that?
Yeah, basically, that's my view of the AFC. I don't think the AFC is nowhere near what AFC used to be at, let's say, 2015. Nowhere near where AFC used to be in 2014, 2012, 2011. And AFC's contribution to Guyanese politics is no longer as active as it used to be. People can't explain when they have last seen, AFC in their neighborhood, and AFC, never used to be like that. So, in my estimation, I think that would be my accurate summation of what the AFC would be like.
Leonard Craig, have you ever heard about a civil society group named Article 13?
Mm-hmm.
One of the founders of Article 13 is sitting in the middle between you and I. What has become, I'm asking you, what has become of Article 13? Or maybe
the thing is, with Article 13, you heard a couple of things probably when they were formed, but then thereafter, yeah. So I don't even know if the group still exists, maybe.
Well, the man, one of the founding members of Article 13, is here, right in the middle of us. Article 13 is alive, moribund, dead, dying, or there is a resurgent Article 13?
Article 13 has been dormant. It's not dead, it's alive, but it has been dormant. Willfully dormant. Willfully dormant. Because there is so much that you can write about that is wrong in Guyana today, that it can become an overload in which you continue and then eventually people start to ignore you because you're yapping at everything. You're throwing a stone at every dog that barks at you. So Article 13 has basically become dormant for the time being. It is not dead. It is still alive, but as I said, it's dormant. We've had some changes in personnel who have gone on to different jobs, different eras, and they requested some time off to settle into their personal lives, and that was granted. And once they have been settled into that, we can get back on the road to what we used to be, which was basically highlighting the shortcomings of our government, shortcomings of our opposition, shortcomings of our constitutional institutions in Guyana, and we should be getting back to that. I would like to say my view on AFC at this point in time. Mr. Craig said that they have nothing to offer, or they haven't offered anything to Guyanese politics recently. I beg to differ, because I personally think that the AFC offered a very large sledgehammer blow to Guyanese politics, because what they have done is to put a sledgehammer lash in all third-party forces, in that they were the third-party force to hold the opposition and the government accountable. Many of us, and I was not a member, but I was a supporter of the AFC back in 2015, and I was very much against them joining with ANUG to get into government. I felt that if they had stayed in their corner and stayed individual, they would have won more seats than they actually won in 2011, and maybe in 2020 they might have been leading a minority government at that point in time. But their gluttony, their greed, their quest for power caused them to join with the ANUG, and we all know what became of that. As a result of that, many people in Guyana are so disappointed in what the AFC represented or has become, that they no longer are willing to trust any third-party force. And that is detrimental to Guyana, because we are back to square one, where we have two majority parties, namely the PPP and the PNCR. Regardless of whether the PNCR calls themselves ANUG or whatever, it is the PNCR. And we are back to those two political parties only. And there is very little choice for Guyanese in terms of politics. Thank you, AFC, for driving a sledgehammer into the Guyanese politics and sending us back 50 years back into the backwardness of Guyana.
Well, you actually didn't disagree with Craig. You just
built
you built on what Craig has said. I want to ask both of you gentlemen, is this it for you? You formed a party that looked, Jonathan, that looked likely to create a stir on the national scene. ANUG, with one of Guyana's leading citizens in terms of his historical record, prominent leader in the PPP's hierarchy, prominent attorney, and then Speaker of the National Assembly, Ralph Ramkaran. Then you left ANUG. Now Leonard Craig has gone to other pastures. Is there, beginning with Leonard Craig, the last time you were here, you said inside of you, you have this, you don't think you will ever divorce yourself from politics. Where are you going, or how do you see yourself what journey have you embarked on that could bring some meaning, physiology to Guyana's political culture?
Uh, Let me just say this. You asked me earlier when I'm explaining things to use words that you will understand, but you use a set of words that I probably.
You're just saying that. You're just saying that to give yourself an excuse
Anyway.
to talk the
Anyway.
usual opaqueness.
No, well, you're right. I feel that what I want to do, or politically that is to contribute to the politics of Guyana. And in my estimation, I think I did make a I'm not sure if we were on a program or we were talking personally, but I did make an analysis to you that the AFC has had a lot of people. You see, the AFC is not a philosophical party or a comrade leader driven party. So people who join the PPP and PNC, two major reasons will overflow that decision. One is either they are following comrade leader, or they're following some philosophy the party embrace, and then from that, and so these two parties are likely to have members for life. AFC got members from both parties, and what happened? People would have left the PPP and PNC, came to the AFC, and they still felt some amount of sympathy, if that's the word we can use, for both parties. So you're in the AFC, but you still got sympathetic views towards the PPP or the PNC. So the AFC never benefited from that group that wants to stick. And I am also part of that came to the AFC and still felt a sympathetic view for another party. It doesn't mean that you will bundle the AFC, throw it away because of that. But I've come to the point where I made a decision that the AFC no longer represent what I want to see in Guyana, or the politics I would want to embrace. And so I've moved on from that. I will embrace any party that is more likely to replace what the AFC represents or represented, or and so that is the journey I'm on right now.
I wish you well. I taught you at UG, and I've always seen you as someone that is a better discovery for our political culture. And I've said this many times. I've worked with you, functioned with you during my time of activism in the AFC. I've never joined any political party. So I have to wish you well. Jonathan, you were one of the founding members of ANUG, and ANUG seemed to have promised so much, but either your impatience or your integrity or whatever, your independent mind pushed you away from ANUG. Where do you see yourself going as we expect to have our money from 2027 just flowing into this country?
Let me put it this way, Freddie. I am one of the very few people that have Guyana's best interest at heart above my own personal best interest. Because I know that should Guyana become better off, I too will become better off. Unfortunately, our politicians today, and I will say this basically across the board, almost 100%, most of them don't really truly put Guyana first. They put themselves first. What can they get out of Guyana, rather than what can they give to Guyana? And that is where my problem comes. My integrity, and I joined a political party, and then I realized that by associating with certain people within a political party, within the political realm of things in Guyana, I would have to rub shoulders with people that I consider down in the gutter and undeserving.
That's a strong
It
term.
is very strong. They're dirty, they're nasty, they're unbecoming people.
And you rub shoulders
And
with
I
those
have
people.
to rub shoulders with them just for the sake of being politics.
And you discovered that when you left?
And I hate that. If you don't have integrity, if the person doesn't have integrity enough to say that I would like to see Guyana get really better, not me personally get better, but Guyana will get really better. I have seen people want to do things for themselves using their political position or their place in a political party to get benefits for themselves, depriving Guyana of resources that could make Guyana that 0.1% better because they want it for themselves. And I cannot handle that. I cannot handle that, because I will tell you to your face, that is wrong. And that's where we can't get together. We cannot get together for that. I'm not going to rub shoulders and be in a political party with a man who I know is a crook, a thief, or whatever else. I can't do it, Freddie. I rather stay in my corner. It doesn't mean that I will stay out of politics. But I can stay within the realm of politics by myself, hoping to make certain changes that can benefit Guyana, and keeping the political leaders in line by making their mistakes public. Both lead government and opposition, making their mistakes public, without me wanting to become into government or into opposition.
Well, if I'm going to come to Leonard just now. If Article 13 doesn't have a resuscitation, or if its dormancy just keep going down, where do you go from there? Would you form something else? Would you look for an existing association? I get the impression, well, I could speak for Craig. Craig always had this political thing in him, and from little I know of you, I think you want to make a political contribution. So if Article 13 doesn't rebound, I'm not for a long time I haven't heard one of the big names in Article 13, Dr. Yog Mahadiu. I don't know if he has migrated, and I haven't heard Christopher Ram saying anything. Of course, Mr. Ram is in a little bit of controversy now. I don't know if that's going to affect Article 13, but let's say Article 13 just go down, and it achieves invisibility. What does Jonathan Yearwood do?
Jonathan Yearwood will always be visible. Jonathan Yearwood will never become invisible.
You heard that, Leonard?
I will never become invisible. That becoming invisible means that I have to shut my mouth.
Even if it's a one-man army?
Even if I, as it is at the moment, I am one man. As
You're
it
part
is,
of Article 13.
but that's dormant. That's dormant. We haven't made a statement for months. But I've made many statements since. Me personally have made many statements since that. And I will continue to act in what I consider the best interest of Guyana by making my statements, which may or may not be pleasing to Tom, Dick, or Harry. That's how I am. And I'm not going to change that to subject myself that somebody in a political party doesn't like what I have to say and they ask me to be quiet. No.
Leonard, you know, the two of you have a few things in common. The frustration, the chagrin, the trauma of embracing a third party, thus to see a degeneracy creep into it and take it over. I know you were very, very high in the AFC, Leonard Craig. I know that. And you actually achieved the position of Deputy General Secretary. In the 2015 campaign, you were in charge either of the national campaign or Georgetown. Do you think you have, as you move on with your journey in life, do you think there's residue of that mental trauma of what the AFC became? You're not coming with your labyrinthine.
No. I thought the question had another part to it. What's the term you use? Mental laceration? That's the term you
Mental
use?
trauma.
Mental trauma.
But trauma is a mental thing. Trauma then.
For me, from the moment, unlike Jonathan, I thought the AFC being part of the coalition was a good idea in 2015. In 2015, I had some reservation, but generally speaking, I think it was a good idea because the country was saying that, literally saying that to people. The AFC, the country was saying that we needed something fresh, and after the coalition with Peter de Geer way back whenever, the current population then had little memory of coalition government, and I think people wanted something fresh to see that experiment, what it would look like. And even some people who were hesitant bought into the concept or what have you. Nevertheless, AFC, having entered into the coalition and having one government, should have behaved differently. And you, Freddie, likes to say very often that some of us belong to the second-tier leadership in the AFC. And for those of us who fit that description that you use, we saw it from the beginning, literally from day one. And we were trying to say to the AFC, you ought to behave differently. You ought to, for example, AFC should have had its own philosophy, making an imprint on the behavior of the total government, because now you're a coalition partner and your own philosophy was differed because AFC was going in a different direction from the PNC. And you cannot then join with the PNC and then become a whole and talk about collective responsibility in totality. So that difference in behavior that was expected from the beginning, we saw that disaster building. We issued warning to the what you would call a first-tier leadership, and it was not heeded, and that mistake was made, and it continued, and we know where what became the end of that. And Then towards the end, I mean, I wasn't in Guyana for a period of time, for 3 and something years plus I was in China. And I came back to Guyana not realizing how deep the division between Moses Nagamutu and Kemraj Ramchitan was. I didn't realize that. You heard stories, people explain to you what's going on, but not until you are actually on the soil Guyana do you get the feel and the real understanding. And I think that was to some degree fomented by APNU, and I would make no qualms in saying by the leader of APNU. He made several statements in the press that is out there, and that was the final nail in the coffin. You can't have a coalition and then you have senior members of one of the partners, and then you're going into an election like that. And, so along with the huge political mistakes, along with, well, in this case, I wouldn't even talk about administrative mistakes. All governments make admin mistakes. Biden, and name a government, they make admin mistakes. So I'm not even going there. But the political mistakes were costly, need not to be, to have been, and it would then be a post-mortem to continue, going through them one by one by one. You probably need a book with several volumes to discuss each and every one of them. But they were huge, and as I'm saying, some of us saw it from day one, but it was not heeded, and the AFC turned out to be more or less a merger rather than an independent coalition partner. And we could have had something beautiful out of that relationship. We could have had something lasting. We could have had something different. We could have had something that is really glorious for Guyana. And the party that had to do that ought to have been the AFC. The PNC will remain who the PNC is, but the AFC needed not to go down, or the AFC needed not go in the same direction. You could have had a successful coalition while holding to your own party philosophy. But a lot of that, in my view, was abandoned, and hence the disappointment that Jonathan spoke of earlier, that a lot of people wanted to see the AFC perform, as an independent coalition partner. And, and because of that, you find a lot of people have left or are leaving the AFC. And as we all would know, AFC's activism is near dead. Literally, party organizers, some of the better party organizers are not there. And, AFC is basically, to use a term I like to use, a show pony, really. Just dress up walking around,
Jonathan, and then the same question to you, Leonard. I have written several times, and I think most people in the world, I would go so far as to be emphatic and say most sensible, rational people in the world would like to see a country have an independent press, civil society groups that are independent, and an opposition party or more than one opposition parties. It's simply commonsensical to have these things in which the citizenry feel that the outlets for saying things that people need to say if you didn't have these things. Now, Minister Juan Edgehill was on this program, and right in this studio when he was being interviewed, he said, I think a country should have an opposition because it keeps the government on its tail. Based on your article here, in which you're analyzing Aubrey Norton, and based on what I know of Jonathan Yearwood's political thinking, are we going to have an election in 2025 in which the opposition is going to be extremely weak? What do you see, or tell me, expand, do you see the PNC resuscitating itself? Norton is gone, and there is going to be a vibrant opposition that commonsensically people in the world would want to see in any country. First, Jonathan, then...
Well, first of all, the national elections are due in 2025. And I think the latest it can be held would be either the end of November 2025 or early December. The government taking office in August 2nd, 2020. So for me, the way I look at it, Aubrey Norton has to go ahead as the opposition leader into the next general elections. I think it is too late for the PNCR to change their leadership now and gain that traction. The 2 years is not enough. It should have been done 2 years ago. That instead of Aubrey Norton being elected leader of the opposition, it might have been somebody else younger, more vibrant, more appealing to the Guyanese public. Because I can safely say I have seen nothing that Aubrey Norton has done that will attract me as an independent voter and as an independent thinker to want to vote for him come 2025. And that is most unfortunate, because that is what an opposition party is supposed to do. They're supposed to get out there and say, hey, vote for me because I'm doing A, B, C, D, E, whatever. And I'm not seeing that from the political opposition. If you're going to wait till 2024, 2025 to become that active, and you're going against a government that is entrenched and has all this money that is available and natural resources that is available to the government, and we all know that they abuse it. Every government abuses the state resources during a political campaign. We know that. You're up against a brick wall. And I've seen nothing that the PNCR has done so far to make any dent into that. Having said that, the PNCR has a base. Like the PPP, they have a base. And that base will vote for them regardless of what. Regardless of who's the leader. Regardless of who they put up in front. That base will vote for them because, as Leonard said, there's the ideology that this is what we're voting for. So both sides have that. And unfortunately, there is a set of independent thinkers, and AFC proved that in 2011, when I think you guys won 7 seats. 7 seats by 5,000. That's 35,000 votes out there, up for grabs. 35,000 seats up for grabs. It is enough to create a minority government in Guyana. The question is, has any of the smaller parties stepped up and said, hey, I'm here, this is what I'm doing, this is why you should vote for me? And I haven't seen any of them do that. And we have 2 years to get to the next election, and they have not gotten into gear as yet. What are they waiting for? What are the smaller political parties waiting for? In my view, there are 35 to 40,000 votes out there, because people are now demoralized with APNU, and a lot of people will also be demoralized with the PPP. For whatever reasons, they have their own reasons for that. but there is a percentage of the voting population out there that are looking for viable leadership from independent, smaller political parties. Unfortunately, AFC hit it with a sledgehammer and has destroyed the trust in a third party.
Leonard, it's too late for the PNC to get a new leader. We paint the wagon, put a new engine in the wagon, and just start rolling.
I don't know if the PNC even want to have a new leader, or what the case might be. But your original question was whether I see a significant fall off from the PNC's thing. A significant fall off depends on what that means. In terms of the question, what significant means. Now, because of the base, an entrenched base that is more likely than not racially biased, the PNC has a core that will vote for it and that will show up on election. However, if we look at the trend, and Jonathan spoke of that group, that 7th seat that the AFC captured on its own before the coalition existed. One thing that we should understand about that group, I mentioned it a little earlier, that these people are not tied to AFC either by philosophy or by the comrade leader syndrome. They have no...
Tied to the AFC, you mean the PNC?
The AFC. The AFC doesn't have members who are here just because of comrade leader, right? Or they are here because the party has a philosophy that runs through it like a thread, whatever that is. So when a party like the AFC blunders, what end up happening is that people, either some of them left wondering, is like when you just kill a gang leader. Some gang members just left wondering, what do we do next? And some of them start forming up and move on.
You're coming up with this long digression to the PNC.
Right. So what I'm saying, these people are here up for grabs. And the party that closer resembles the AFC, and in this case, AFC came over to most people as being multiracial and all of that. And the party that is able to demonstrate, and Jonathan mentioned earlier that only 2 parties, major parties, are left. And that will persist for a while. PNC versus PPP straight up. Regardless of which third party come in, at least for the next 2 election cycles, it will be PPP, PNC straight up. And which of the 2 parties can present a multiracial outlook. And this is beyond accusation of race and all of that. When people look at these 2 parties, which one appears to them to be making
but you haven't answered the
strides?
Question. Coming on to 2025, are we going to see a weakened opposition that one should lament, given the commonsensical acceptance that a country need to have?
I think the opposition will flatline as it is now. It will continue that trajectory. I don't see a upward mobility in it.
But it's something I have to take
traction.
Something I have to take you up on. I'm sure Jonathan heard it. You are saying that the PNC is not in a mood to change their leaders. They're long knives out for Up Norton, and I have some personal knowledge of that. You don't think the
we
PNC
do,
wants-
but I don't think the rank and file voting appetite to change Norton is there. The knives are people at the leadership on a higher level, but I don't think the rank and file I don't see the appetite in those people who have to go to Congress and vote.
Would that prevent the upper people from wanting to remove him? There's a Congress coming.
Freddie, can I say something?
Yes,
here?
yes, you can say anything on this program.
Leonard said that
Except libel.
Leonard said that he thinks that the PNC has flatlined. And in many ways, I think that they have. My worry is at what level have they flatlined? Because Leonard says that the next two elections will be a straight fight between PNC and PPP. The third parties or whatever will win little to nothing. PPP, PNC. Where does the PNC flatline? If they flatline at 20 seats, it means PPP wins 45 seats.
That's just short of a 2/3.
No, more than a 2/3 majority. 43 is 66%. 43 seats in parliament
Okay.
is 66%.
No.
And that gives the ruling party the ability to change anything in the constitution.
2/3 majority of 65 is what?
43.
42 or 3, something like that. But
42
I think it is hovering just around whatever the support was for the AFC at 35,000, 5, 6, 7 seats. Is in question. That is what is in question. I don't think it is going as far down to 20 seats and all of that. I think just that 5, 6, 7 seats are in question. And the roaming eyes of the current AFC members, they are going to be attracted to the party that is most successful, and I believe the PPP right now is more successful than the opposition in presenting an attractive platform for capturing that AFC wandering vote.
I want to bring in something before you must bring in before our time goes. The advertisement for this program stated 2 former politicians discussed economics, politics, sociology of Guyana. We have a visiting delegation here they say they're coming to probe issues of state violations, injustices, etc. And I'm sure that as part of their research, they have to look at these programs because 2 high-level former opposition politicians talking about politics in Guyana. So I want to ask both of you before our time goes. This delegation headed by a lady named D. Hawkins Hagler, she said the reason why they're here, they formed this mission, was based on what came out of a conference that was organized by Rickford Burke. And in this conference, they had discussions, and she named David Patterson, Cathy Hughes, and Roysdale Ford. Now, the government has refused to meet with this delegation because they're saying, you came out of a conference. This thing emerged out of a conference organized by Rickford Burke. This man is unhinged. This man is insanely anti-government. How on the basis of that you could decide you coming to Guyana and investigate state violations, and you will seek audience with the president, the prime minister, his cabinet, certain other political heads. I'm asking both of you, is this what interpretation you put? Let's look at the government's position and the delegation's position quickly. They said based on this conference that it was in New York that the opposition attended, and the opposition people spoke to them. They decided that maybe they should go on a fact-finding mission. The government of Guyana is saying, look, these people arrogate to themselves the right to come and investigate state policies, governance in Guyana, just like that, and they will seek audience with who are these people to think that they could just descend into a country, ignore its sovereignty, and say, we are investigating this, we are investigating A, B, C, D. What's your take on that? Both of you.
First?
Yeah.
First of all, the first question I would ask is, under whose authority are they here in Guyana? Or are they coming to Guyana? Under whose authority? Obviously not the U.S. government. They're not here as a representative of the U.S. government.
Or the United Nations.
Nor United Nations.
Okay.
And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, they're here under no reputable body authority. They were not invited. They have invited themselves. So I quite agree with our government to ignore them. Particularly, as you said, it came out of a conference organized by Mr. Burke. However, having said that, if these people that are arriving here in Guyana decided they want to do a fact-finding mission in Guyana, they don't need to go to the government. They can drive up to Quarantine, they could go to Anna Regina, they could go to Mabaruma, they could go to Lethem and talk to Tom Jones, talk to John Public, talk to Jane Public, find out how Guyanese people feel. And that will give them an idea whether Guyanese feel discriminated or not discriminated. They don't have to go to the government to find that out. They can find that out by talking to the individuals on the ground. The government will never tell you we're discriminating against the people of Area A, because no government will say that they're discriminating. Whether they are or they're not, they will never admit it. But it is up to, if you want to find the facts, you have to get down in the trenches to find the facts. Get down in the gutter, get down there and talk to the people on the road to find out. And you can't just do it in Georgetown. You have to take samples from all across the country to find out how people are reacting to your government. Whether they're being discriminating against you, whether they're favoritism against you, for you, with you, whatever. And then you write a report stating that this is what we found. That's my view on it.
The recondite intellectual delivery of Leonard Craig.
You're a funny guy. For me, I think whether fact finding or non-fact finding or whatever the mission is about, I think people are free to come to Guyana. Maybe we could open fact finding tourism, and people can just come and take their polls and talk to people, and so on. And whether or not they're enabled or not enabled by the government shouldn't even bother them. They just come and find your facts and do what you have to do. You don't need to cry over that the government refused. The government, you see, the government has to, at the end of the day, is a political party and has to behave politically and do what is in its interest, in its own political interest. And if this fact-finding mission or whatever name you call it is not in the political interest of the government, then the government just go on with its business, and the people come in as tourists and they find their facts and they go back out, and that's it. So I don't think we should you literally be wasting time talking about them.
But there's one quick question. I'm looking at my mango pelter here. We have about 3 minutes. There's one quick question. I find the lady, the head of the delegation, D. Hawkins Hagler, she said something that an astute mind. You don't need an astute mind. You don't have to have an astute mind to pick it up. If she went to this conference on Guyana, and this conference said A, B, C, D, E, G, what have you, and then she met people who spoke at the conference on Guyana, Member of Parliament David Patterson, Catthews, etc. How is it possible? I am just thinking what I would operate as both a politician and an academic so quickly. How is it possible that she did not know who sponsored this conference when it was sponsored by Wickford Burke? She said she never heard about him. She doesn't know about him. She doesn't know about his organization. You can just form a fact-finding mission based on a conference, and wouldn't you want to know who held this conference quickly?
Freddie, can I ask you, if you think that she doesn't know who Wickford Burke is, can I sell you the Bank of Guyana?
No, I think she knows who he is.
Of course she knows.
I think she knows. And I think that has damaged her credibility.
Of course.
We got to go quickly, and then you're going to sum up.
No, for me, I wouldn't waste more time talking about the group. I think they have their own mission. They're coming, or put it this way: if a group of people in a conference presents something to you at a conference is a place where facts must be presented, right? So
and
you
questions
can
asked.
exactly. So if I come to you and I make an allegation, I have to walk with my facts, or I at least have to have it at home, and then I can invite you, come and sit down and check these facts. And you can compile that fact, or the group of facts that you collect. You can then compile that and do what you think is best if you're an advocacy group or whatever that is, because you must know facts when you see it, right? How can you corroborate this, that, and put it in perspective? So that the group has to,
We're going to close now with one last question, and it's a monosyllabic answer, meaning yes or no. If during their research in Guyana they look at this program and they want to speak to Leonard Craig and Jonathan Yearwood, you would speak to the delegation? You would meet the delegation and talk to them?
I don't think they're likely to want to speak to me. And I'm not sure if there's any value. I probably don't have facts that they would be looking for. If it's a fact-finding mission, I'm not sure I'm in possession of facts in that way.
And you?
I would talk with them, but I don't think they would like to hear what I have to say.
Okay. I wish we didn't have time, but I'd like to know what they have to say. Look, this program has an open door to Jonathan Yearwood. You have patronized us when we were in early stages, our infancy, and Leonard Craig. I can assure you the invitation will come again and again and again. You were watching the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. Just in case you just join it, you can go on YouTube and look at the whole program again. Our guest was former politician from the Alliance for Change, Leonard Craig, and former founding member of A New and United Guyana, ANUG, Jonathan Yearwood. I can assure you we'll have both of these gentlemen back in different combination. It's always good to be talking to them. We will see you on Friday. As I normally say, catch you later. Bye-bye.